our MDQ Quilter, our MD Quilter 2 block of the month. This is block 6. It's our Crazy Stitches block. It's the last block in our 6-block series, and it was created for you by Rita Gazard and presented by myself. My name is Mark Garretts, and as DJ said, I'm a National Floriani educator. So as I like to do before we get into the specifics of the software and the construction of the block, I like to show you a picture of what the finished block is going to look like. So here it is. It's a Crazy Stitches and Crazy Quilting style block. So this is going to be a piece in the hoop or stitch and flip type design. And we're going to put down each piece and placement lines and tack down lines and all that stuff. And then we're going to finish it at the end by embellishing it with the built-in Crazy Stitches that are built into the MDQ2 program. So I'm going to go ahead and end this, and we're going to get right into the software part. If you haven't already done so, you want to go ahead and bring up the MDQ program and get a nice blank screen. If you don't know how to do that, you want to click right up here and click the new page icon. You've already seen this. And I just want to mention at the outset before we get into this that this is not really a very complicated block to put together. However, it's probably the most step-intensive block that we've done. So it has the most steps to follow. And so by printing out the PDF instructions that you'll download along with this video or in the free project section on the club site, you'll be able to follow along with the printed instructions, and it'll make this a whole lot easier to follow than just by watching the video. So I just wanted to mention that up front. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our workspace set up so that we're all on the same page, both literally and figuratively. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to bring our cursor up and point to anywhere on this upper ruler, and we're going to right-click on it to bring up a little pop-up. And you want to be in metric mode. If you're not in metric mode, if you're in inches, click metric. You want show grid, and you want snap to grid. So you want these three things checked. Now, if you check any of them, the little box is going to go away. So you want to right-click on the ruler to bring it back. And then lastly, we're going to come down to our grid settings right here and bring up our grid options. We want to make sure that our grid spacing is set to 10. Now, mine's already set to 10. If yours isn't, go ahead and type in 10 and 10 in the vertical and the horizontal. And our grid major, mine is right now set at 25, but we want to set it to 5. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to type over, set them both to 5, and click OK. And you can see now that these purple lines on my screen here, these are my grid major lines. So these we're going to use as a guide to help us draw in some artwork to use as a further guide to lay our stitches down for this design. So the very next thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our design color palette. Now this is something we haven't done before. So this is, again, a new technique we're going to show you, and it's a really cool feature of the way we handle threads and design colors in the program. So down here at the bottom, this is our thread palette. This is all the available colors to choose from. And up here, this is our design color palette. Now, this shows the colors that are in the design, but there's nothing here because we have a brand new design and there's nothing loaded. And we haven't created any stitches yet, so there's nothing here. But a really cool feature of this is we can, if we want to, assign colors from down here up here before we assign them to any stitches. And this is a great shortcut because it allows us to place colors up here in the design palette that we know we're going to use, or for quick and easy access to them without scrolling through all 360 colors down here. So we're going to use 4 colors in this design. We're going to use a light blue, 2 different dark blues, and a medium blue. We're going to use all of those different colors to get the machine to stop in between the steps, and we're also going to use them to designate the various types of stitches that we're going to put down. So we're going to need a light blue, 2 darks, and a medium blue. So I'm going to start with this light blue right here on the corner. This is Venice blue, but it really doesn't matter what blues you pick, but I'm just going to go ahead and do this one. I'm going to right-click on it, and I get this little pop-up that says Add to Design Palette. When I left-click on the pop-up, it's going to put that blue up here in the design palette. Now, I also need 2 dark blues, so I'm going to come and I'm going to pick Rocket Blue here. This is a good dark blue. So I'm going to right-click on that and left-click to say Add to Design Palette. I'm going to come over here to this blue jay, and I'm going to right-click on it, say Add to Design Palette. And lastly, I need a medium blue, so I'm going to pick this one right here, which turns out is named medium blue. So I'm going to right-click on that and left-click on it. Now you can see I've got these 4 colors preset in my design palette. So now I don't have to keep hunting through here to find them. They're all going to be right here and convenient for me to click on. Notice that they don't have numbers in them yet. That's because we haven't assigned them to any stitches yet. They only get a number when we assign them to an actual stitch order in the actual design. So we're going to do that pretty soon. But before we do that, we're going to put our block outline in the middle of the screen so we have something to work from. So we put everything in the center of the block, etc. Now we've shown you a lot of different ways over the course of these 6 blocks to get a 150 millimeter rectangle or square in the center of the screen. We're going to show you yet another way to do that today, and that's by using one of the built-in blocks to start with. So I'm going to come up here to my select block, and I'm going to click that, and that's going to bring up the album blocks. But the block we're after is just a simple square. It turns out it's in the basic blocks where it ought to be, and it's basic block number 37. So I'm going to scroll down here, find basic block 37, and click it to bring it in. Now it doesn't matter what size you bring it in or where it defaults to, because we're going to resize it here in just a second. But you can see this is a filled block, and this fill color is going to get in the way of us putting down our stitches and things. So we're going to turn off the fill by coming over here to our properties box and simply unchecking fill, and we're going to click apply, and now we just have the outline of our block here. So that's kind of nice. And then we're going to come over here to our transform tab in our properties, and we're going to make sure that maintain aspect ratio is checked, because we're just going to change one of the 2 values and we want the other one to come along with it. So I'm just going to change the width to 150 millimeters, and you can see that it automatically changes the height for me. And again, that's because maintain aspect ratio is checked. And when I click apply, I'm now going to get a nice 150 millimeter by 150 millimeter block size. I'm going to come over to my magnifying glass, and I'm going to double click it. And we've taught you many times that double clicking the magnifying glass is a great shortcut for what we call zoom to fit. So that's going to zoom it into the screen so it fits on the screen so we can see it easier. And that kind of takes care of getting our block all set up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create some more artwork for the shape of the heart and the border for the block. So to do that, we're going to come up to our artwork tool here, and we're going to click on the line tool, and that's going to allow us to draw in some artwork lines. And I'm just going to trace around, and I'm going to draw the outline of that heart. And I'm going to be using my grid lines as a guideline to do that, along with my grid major lines. And remember, we have snap to grid turned on, so it doesn't matter if I get right on the intersection of where I need to be, or as long as I get close, it's going to snap the point in. So the first point's going to be right here. It's 1 tick up from the baseline or the center line of that major grid line, and 1 tick up on the vertical grid line. So I'm just going to click right there. The next one's going to be 2 ticks over along the top grid line here. And to show you what I mean by not having to be close, I'm purposefully going to be out just a little bit where you can see, and I'm going to click, and you can see that it snaps to position there. And when I say click, I mean a left click. So sometimes I'm actually going to say left click, sometimes I'll just say click, but you just have to understand that left click and click are the same. When I want you to right click, I'll specifically say right click. So I'm going to come down here to this point, which is 2 ticks up, and on the far grid line here, and I'm going to click. I'm going to come down here to the intersection of these 2 and click. I'm going to come up here 2 ticks up on the other grid line and click, 2 ticks in from the center over here and click, and then I'm going to come all the way down to here and click. And when I do that, I have finished my heart outline, and I'm going to right click now to tell it that I'm done. Now if you look really close right in here, you'll see that they didn't quite line up. Well, that's perfectly fine, because these are just going to be guidelines to tell us approximately where our stitches are going to go. These lines are not going to stitch. So the fact that they didn't line up perfectly is not a big deal for us right now, because when we put the stitches down, they will. So the next thing we want to do is we want to trace our outer grid. So we're going to trace a box around this outer grid line here. And to do that, we're going to click on our line tool one more time. And we're going to start right here at the upper left corner, and I'm going to click. I'm going to come over here and click. I'm going to come down here and click. So you can see I'm tracing those major grid lines, and I'm just clicking all the way around back to the beginning. And now I'm going to right-click to tell it that I am done. So now I've got my two artworks in there to tell us where we're going to lay our stitches down. And at this point, we don't need these major grid lines in here anymore. In fact, they're going to be a little bit distracting. So we're going to get them out of the way. And we're going to do that by coming up to our tools. And we're going to click on Preferences. And we're going to go over to, I'm sorry, folks, my system is doing its automatic backup, timed perfectly in the middle of my presentation. So we're going to have to wait just a second. So there's no way for me to get out of this. I hope everybody's doing okay. I don't know what to say to fill the time. Okay, we're almost there. We have to get to 100%, and then it's going to create a new snapshot. And maybe I should just tell you that backing up your system is always a good thing to do. All right, so we've created a snapshot of where I am. All right, good, we're back. Okay, so we're going to come over here to Grid, and we're going to click our Grid tab. Now, this is exactly the same place you would get to if you right-clicked on the ruler and selected Grid Options. We're just showing you another way to get here. So we're going to change our Grid Major. We're going to leave our Grid Horizontal alone. We're going to come over here to our Grid Major, and we're going to change it from 5 to 25. So I'm going to just type over the 5 and put in 25 and click OK. And you can see now our Grid Major lines are so far apart that we only see the ones in the center now, which is exactly what we want. Okay, now when you refer to the printed instructions, you're going to see the order that the fabrics are going to go down. It's going to be a pretty standard stitch and flip. I'm not going to go through them all, but basically we're going to put this square down, then this triangle, then this triangle, and then this rectangle here, and then this triangle up here, all the way around stitching and flipping. So you get the idea of that. Again, if you look at the stitch order in your diagram, it'll help make a little bit more sense of this. But we're just going to go around and create our stitches. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our tack down, or our placement line, for this first block right here. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to come up to our top row of icons here and click our Run Stitch icon. This is going to let us draw or digitize run stitches directly on the screen. So we are going to start at this point right here, and we are going to go around the clock and end up back at this point. So we're actually going to start here. You could click right here if you wanted to, but trust me, it's going to snap to over here. So we're going to start right here. We're going to come up here. We're going to left click here, left click right here, and left click back up here, and then right click to tell it that we're done. And you can see that that outline didn't exactly line up with the artwork that we drew, and it's because this line didn't really follow on that line. But again, it really doesn't matter because this is just showing us what we are approximately going to place everything. So what we're going to do now is we're going to reselect that artwork by clicking our Select tool. And we are going, or excuse me, it's not artwork, it's a run stitch. We're going to reselect it by clicking our Select tool. And we're going to come over to our Properties box, and we are going to change our stitch length from 3 to 4 millimeters. So I'm going to type over the 3 and put in a 4 and click Apply. And that's because this is going to end up being a placement stitch. And all of our placement stitches are going to be in 4 millimeters, and they're all going to be in this light color. So right now you can see that I've got this medium brown here, which was the color that the block was in, and that's assigned to those stitches right now. When I left click on this light blue, which is going to be all our placement stitches, you see that it reassigned that stitch. Since there were no more stitches left with that brown, it went away. Now, so you can see these stitches a little bit easier at home, I'm going to turn on my 3D icon so you can see the stitches a little bit easier. And you can either do this or not do this at home. All right, now we've created our placement line, but this is the exact size of the piece of fabric that's going to be here showing at the end. It hasn't allowed for any seam allowance. So we're going to actually increase the size of this to allow for the seam allowance. We're going to come over to our Properties box, click our Transform tab, and this time we're going to use the percentage increase values over here. Maintain aspect ratio still checked. So we're going to type 150% into one. It's going to change the other one to follow it right along. And we're going to click Apply. And now we've got a much bigger set of stitches that allow for the seam allowance. Now it's not quite centered around our design, so we're going to come into the center here, and anytime that you see that hand icon, so you can either be on the center or on over the stitches, anytime you see that hand, if I click and drag, I can actually move the stitches as a whole. So I'm going to click and drag them over a little, just a little bit to try and get them centered up. I think I went a little bit too far. All right, and maybe just down a little bit. Okay, so just going to visually kind of get it centered up. This doesn't have to be perfect. Again, this is just a visual guide for placing the fabric down. If it's off just a little tiny bit, it's not going to be the end of the world, because one of the advantages of doing piece in the hoop is that the precision is by the seam lines that we're going to put in, not by the placement lines or the way you trim the blocks like you do in traditional piecing. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start to create the rest of our stitches. Okay, so we're going to come in here, we're going to click our Run icon one more time, and this time we're going to put down our first set of tack down lines or seam lines, and to do that we're going to use these two dark colors. So we're going to alternate color 1, color 2, dark 1, dark 2, dark 1, dark 2, back and forth to get the machine to stop between these steps. So we're going to start with dark color number 1, which is right here. So I'm going to select that color. Now whatever I draw is going to be in that color. Before I do that, though, I'm going to come over here to my Properties box, and I'm going to change the stitch length to 2.5. Now you'll notice that I don't have any stitches selected at the moment. So when I change a property over here for that type of stitch without actually having any stitches selected over here, what it's doing is it's not changing anything here because there's nothing selected. Instead, it's changing the default stitch length or whatever default property for any new run stitch that I put in. So when I click Apply now, it's going to lock that in. So any new run stitch that I digitize or draw right now, it's going to come in at 2.5. And it doesn't change the default for the program, just for this design, until I do that again and change it to something else. So that's kind of a cool feature. So we're going to go ahead and draw in our first run stitch, and it's going to be right along this line right here. So I'm going to left click and left click right along it, and I'm going to right click to tell it that I'm done. We're going to put in our second one now, and it's going to go right here. We're going to switch colors. So the first thing I'm going to do is check my second dark blue color, and I'm going to come here and click and come down here and click and right click to tell it I'm done. I'm going to switch back to my first dark color, and I'm going to put in this line right here. I'm not actually, you'd think I'd want to go here, but in fact I'm going to go right here. So I'm going to come right up here, and I am going to click it. See if I got that right. Yes, I'm going to click it right there, and I'm going to click it right there, and I'm going to right click to tell it that I am done. So we put in our first 3 sets of seam lines or tack down lines. Now all of these stitches, these 3 sets of stitches that we put down, there were obvious places in the quilt design and with using these other placement lines to show us where to place our pieces of fabric, our 3 pieces of fabric. The 4th piece that we need to put down, there's no obvious place to put it. So it's going to go down right here, but there's no stitch line there to show it. So we're going to create a placement line to put it there. So we're going to click on our light blue because we're going to put down a placement line, and we're going to come right over here, 1 tick over from the stitch, and I'm going to click, and we're going to come 1 tick up from the stitch up here, and I'm going to left click, and then I'm going to right click to finish it. I'm going to reselect that stitch, and I'm going to change my stitch length to 4. Okay, and I'm going to click Apply. Now, because I've changed that particular stitch to 4, it's now 4 millimeter stitch length, but I haven't affected my defaults. So when I go back and check my run stitch to put in the actual stitch to tack that piece down, which is going to go right here, you'll see I'm back at 2.5. So I'm going to click my dark color one more time because this is going to be a tack down. So I'm going to come and click here, and I'm going to right click to finish. Now we need to do that same thing again. We need to put in another placement line out right in here for this piece of fabric. And so I'm going to click my light color because it's going to be in light. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to come one tick down from the center and click there. And I'm going to right click to tell it I'm done. I'm going to click my select tool to reselect that stitch, and I'm going to again change it to 4 millimeters, and I am going to click apply. So now I've got my placement stitch in for that particular block. I'm going to come back and reselect my run tool, click on my first dark blue color one more time, and then I'm actually going to put in the stitches. This one I'm going to start down here since the machine ended up down here. I'm going to start here, come back up here, and right click to tell it that I'm done. And now we're going to click on our second dark color, and we're going to put in the last set of stitches for the heart, which is this line right here. And we've got a good placement line for that, so we don't need another placement line. So I'm going to come here and click. I'm going to come down here and click, and right click to tell it that I'm done. So we've done all the stitches for our heart, and now we have to do the stitches for the border. So we're going to put in our placement stitches for the border, and I am going to do that by clicking on the light color one more time. And this border is going to basically be one tick out all the way around from our design. And we're going to start down in this corner right here. And so we're going to be one tick out from our inner artwork there. So I'm going to click right here. I'm going to come up here and click and just go around the square all the way around, come back to the beginning, and right click to finish it. I'm going to reselect it, and I am going to change my stitch length to 4 because, again, this is just a placement line, so the stitches don't need to be that fine. Okay, and the last thing we're going to do is we are going to put in our border our tack down stitches. So we are going to come back and click our run stitch icon one more time. We're going to click our first dark color, and we're going to put in our first one, and it is going to go from this edge of the block right here all the way over to here. So we're going to go ahead and click that. So I'm going to click it, and I'm going to click over here, and I'm going to right click and tell it that I'm done by right clicking. Then I'm going to do the next one. I'm going to come up to the top here, and I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to come all the way over here and click, and then right click to tell it I'm done. I'm going to repeat that with the two sides now, but the two sides are much longer. So they're going to start way up here. So I'm going to click and end at the same place on the other side. So I'm going to left click, and then I'm going to right click, and I'm going to repeat that over here. I'm going to start at the bottom this time, left click, come up here, and left click, and right click to tell it that I'm done. So this puts in the seam lines for the block. And so now we've got all of our seam lines, or tack down lines, if you will, and our placement lines for all of the fabric that's going to be in this block. So the last thing we need to do, or one of the last things, is we need to put in our crazy quilt stitches. And all of our crazy quilt stitches are going to be in this medium blue color here. So we haven't assigned anything to that yet. It doesn't have a number. We're just going to click it to select it. And now any stitches that we put in are going to be in that color. And this time we're going to basically trace over most of our seam lines here, but we're going to do it kind of one line at a time rather than going all the way around. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to right click to tell it that I'm done. And I'm just going to keep doing that all the way around the heart. So I'm going to do it each segment at a time. I'm left clicking, right click to tell it I'm done, left click, left click, right click to tell it I'm done, and just all the way around the heart just like this, and one last time to finish up the heart and tell it that I'm done. And then we're going to do the same thing with our border lines. And so I'm going to start over here on this one, and I am going to click it, and I'm going to start right in here. So it's going to come right to here. So I'm going to click and left click to tell it that I'm done. And I'm going to do the same thing at the top, going back the other direction, click and left click to tell it that I'm done. You notice it's not quite as long as the seam line. It's on that center there. And then I'm going to repeat that on the long line. So I'm going to click up here, and I'm going to click down here, and I'm going to right click to tell it I'm done. I'm going to do that on the very last piece and come up here and right click to tell it I'm done. And that puts in our crazy quilt stitches. But wait a minute, they're not crazy quilt stitches. So we are going to change them from the run stitches that we just put in, and we're going to change them into crazy quilt stitches. So we're going to scroll down in our sequence view, and you can see that all of the items that we just created are all right here. They're in this very last item, and I'm going to click on that, and I am going to scroll down, and you can see that these are all the individual runs that we just put down that are going to be our crazy quilt stitches, and you can see that they're all this medium blue color, which is one of the reasons we did this, so that you could get to them easy. You're going to come down to this area and select the very first run stitch. And when you've selected that run stitch, up here in the properties you can see it set to a single run. That's not quite what we want. We want the crazy quilt stitch, so we're going to click the down arrow and select crazy quilting. The next thing we want to do is select our motif. The first one's going to be motif number 48, so I'm going to click the down arrow and scroll down to motif 48. And try not to go too far. Here we go, motif 48. And the stitch length on that one at 4 is too small, so we're going to change it to 8, and we're going to click apply. And that's going to put in our crazy quilt stitch here. But you can see that that crazy quilt stitch is just a little bit off center. So we're actually going to use our hand icon here, our move icon, to move it. So if you get in over the design, you'll see it changes to that hand. Once you see the hand, left click and drag that line over just a little bit to line it up. So I've got it lined up pretty good on the first shot. If you don't get it on the first shot, just keep moving it till you get it straight. So we're going to go to our sequence view, and you can see now that that's changed to a crazy looking run. We're going to come down to our second run and pick it. So that's the straight line, and it's this one over here. We're going to come back up to our properties, select crazy quilting one more time. This time we're going to select motif number 28. So I'm going to come down and select 28. And this stitch length is okay to leave at 4, so we're going to click apply. And that's going to put that one in. That's centered fairly nicely, so we're not going to mess with that one. We're going to get the next run in the sequence, and you can see this is quite repetitive. We're just going to keep getting the runs and assigning crazy quilt stitches to them. So I'm going to select crazy quilting one more time. This time we're going to use motif number 40. So I'm going to scroll down to where I can see 40 on my screen and select that. This stitch length wants to be set to 6. So I'm going to change it to a 6 and click apply. And again, this one's not centered, so we're going to wait till our icon is a hand, hover over the stitches, and move it over just a little bit to the right and get it centered up. That looks pretty good, so I'm going to leave that there. And now we're going to come down and repeat this again to select the fourth run in the sequence. And we're going to change this time, instead of a crazy quilt stitch, we're actually going to use a built-in motif stitch. So instead of selecting crazy quilting, we're going to select motif, and we're going to select our down arrow because this one wants to be motif number 225. So I'm going to scroll down. Oops, I went too far. There's 225 right there. I'm going to select that. And this stitch length wants to be at 6, so I'm going to change it to 6 and click apply. We're going to come back down to our sequence view, select the next run in the sequence. We're going to stay on motifs for a while here, so I'm going to click another motif. And this one wants to be motif number 264. It's quite far down on the list, but we give you hundreds of motifs built into the software. So I'm going to come here and select 264. This one wants to be a stitch length of 9. So I'm going to change that to 9 and click Apply. That one's going to go in. It looks great. We're going to come down to the last run of the heart. We're going to use yet another motif. And this one's going to be motif number 202, which is just the second one in the list. So I'm going to select 202. And this one needs to be a stitch length of 6. And I'm going to go ahead and click Apply. And that's going to do everything for the heart. Now we're going to do the same motif or crazy quilt run for all 4 of our border stitches. So I'm going to select the very first one, and I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this. One is you could select the first one, and you can come down here and hold down the Shift key and select the last one in the sequence, and that's going to select all 4. The other way you can do it is select the first one, hold down Control, and select all the ones you want. So either way you do it is fine. We're going to apply a crazy quilt stitch to these. So I'm going to come down and select Crazy Quilting. And this one is going to be stitch number 12, so motif number 12. So I'm going to scroll down and select 12. And the stitch length on this one also wants to be a 6. So I'm going to select 6 and click Apply. And now we've got our crazy quilting applied to all of it. Now there's just one last thing we need to do, and that is that these actual border stitches don't go all the way to the edge of the block. And we want to extend them all the way to the edge of the block. So I'm going to come down to my sequence view, and I'm going to select the last run, which is the second vertical run. I'm going to hold down Control and select the one just above it. So now I've got just both my vertical crazy quilt stitches selected, and I'm going to use my transform over here to change the height to match our quilt block perfectly. So to do that, I don't want to make them any wider, just taller. So I'm going to uncheck Maintain Aspect Ratio, and I'm going to change the height to match the height of our quilt block, which is 150 millimeters. And I'm going to click Apply, and you'll see that'll extend them out perfectly to match the height of the quilt block. We have one more set of stitches to put in, and that is our basting stitch to show us where we're going to trim our block at the end. And to do that, we're actually going to use a conversion. We got some nice artwork that's already set up to the right dimension. So I'm going to scroll up to the top of my sequence view, select that very first artwork. It's the bigger one that goes all the way around the outside. And I am going to come down to my one-click icons down here at the bottom and select my run stitch. And I'm going to click that, and that's going to turn that into a run stitch. And I'm going to come up here to my properties, and since this is just a basting stitch, I'm going to change the stitch length to 5 and click Apply. And that completes putting together all of the stitches for this block. And I am going to now actually only have to save the block. So to do that, come up here to your Save icon and click Save. And that's going to bring up your Save dialog. Now, I've already got it pointing to my September 2015 in my MDQII projects. So I'll go up a little bit to show you where that is. Okay, so that's in Floriani Designs, and it's in MDQII projects. So let me go back down to MDQII project right here, and then it's in the September folder. So I'm going to click my September folder. It's September 2015. You can see I've already got one saved in here, but I'm just going to call this one My Crazy Quilt Block. So I'm going to call it My Crazy, actually, Stitch Block. And I'm going to click Save, and that would save it. And the only other thing you need to do is save it in your machine format. So the way you do that is you click File and then Save As, and then you can leave it the same name if you want, and you can just select your machine format. So for example, if I want to stitch this out on a Baby Locker Brother multi-needle machine, I'd select that, which would give me that format, the PES format, and click Save, and it'll put that in there. Then all I need to do is put it on a stick, or however you get it over to your machine, and we're ready to go. So that ends the software part of the demo. I'm going to go ahead and make that small again, and I'm going to start up my PowerPoint because we're going to get right into the stitch out instructions or the construction instructions of this block. You've seen this one. There's the picture, so that's where we're headed. And I just want to go over the project a little bit with you. This, as you know, this is the 6th of 6 blocks. So this is the last block in the series, and there's been one block per month. So if you're just joining us for the first time, you want to go back to the club site, download all the other 5 projects so you can get your whole quilt done. You're going to stitch each block out 4 times. At the end of the 6-month period, which will be next month, we're going to join all the 24 blocks together into a completed quilt, and it's going to make a 40 by 25 inch wall hanging. But the materials list that follows right now, this is the material list for this particular block. If you want a complete list of all the materials you need to complete the project, then you want to go back and look at the instructions for block 1, where we have a more detailed list. So the materials that you require for this block is you're going to need some Floriani quilted soft bamboo cotton blend batting. You're going to need some Floriani nylon no-show mesh stabilizer. You're going to need embroidery and bobbin thread, and you want to choose colors that work well with your fabric choices. You're going to need some R&K embroidery perfection tape, which is the pink tape, and you're going to need a minimum 6-inch by 6-inch hoop size, which is 150 millimeter by 150 millimeters. And you're going to need, of course, the standard tools, rotary cutter, ruler, scissors, all that kind of stuff to cut up your fabric. Now your fabric details, you're going to need 3 different kinds of fabric. We're going to call them fabric A, B, and C, and there's different pieces for each one. So real quickly, you're going to need 4 3¼ inch squares for section 1. We're going to call that A1. You're going to need 2 3-inch squares cut in half diagonally to make some triangles. You're going to need 4 3 and 4½ inch rectangles for the next section. For fabric B, you're going to need 4 2¼ by 3¼ inch rectangles. Again, 2 3-inch squares cut in half diagonally to make a total of 4 pieces. You're going to need 4 3 by 4½ inch rectangles. And in fabric C, you're going to need 4 2½ by 5-inch rectangles and 8 1 3/4 by 5-inch rectangles for the short sides, and 8 1 3/4 inch by 7-inch rectangles for the long sides of the block. And these fabric quantities make all 4 blocks. So let's get right into how we do it. But before we do, I want to just tell you some important notes here. As we mentioned earlier, the color changes that are in this block design, they're mainly there so that the machine will stop between the colors so that you can actually take the hoop out if you need to, or even without taking the hoop out, place your fabric and then stitch it and then flip it out of the way, and et cetera, et cetera. So if you don't have those stops in there, it would just continue on. If you have a multi-needle machine, you're going to have to use your machine controls to put those manual stops in so it stops and it doesn't continue on. So what you want to do to embroider is you want to load the Crazy Stitches block design into your machine. You want to hoop up a piece of Floriani nylon no-show mesh. You want to get it nice and tight. Center a 7-inch square piece of the batting in the center of the hoop, and you want to secure the batting along the edge with embroidery perfection tape. Make sure you get it right at the edge so you don't stitch over the tape. Next, you're going to attach the hoop to your machine and stitch out the first color, which is going to stitch out the placement line like you see in the first photo there. Then the machine should stop. You're going to angle fabric A1 right side up so it covers the stitches. Now, most of the fabric is going to go right side down as we put it in here. This is the exception. The first piece goes right side up. And you're going to stitch out the first color again. So that means you're going to go back in your machine steps and restitch that first color. We didn't put an extra set of stitches in the design because you can just use the stitch over again. And then if you want to, you can trim the fabric close to the stitching if you desire to reduce a bit of the bulk in the design. You don't want to trim, not the end of the world. Next, you want to line up fabric B1 right side down along the first set of stitches like you see in the photograph here. And you should always leave about a 1/16 of an inch away from that stitch line. And we've allowed some extra seam allowance in the cutting of the fabric to allow for that. So you want to move it just a little tiny bit in and then stitch out the next color. And then you want to finger press it open like you see in the third picture here. Next, you want to place fabric B2 right side down along the other seam line, as you see there, and stitch out the next color to tack it down and finger press it open. We're going to continue on with fabric C1 right side down, stitch out the next color to tack it down and finger press it open. And now here's something kind of a little different. Before you do anything else, you're going to stitch out the next color, which is going to create that placement line so it shows you where to put the next piece of fabric, and you can see that in the fourth picture there. Then you're going to place fabric A2 right side down along that line or just a little bit off it, stitch out the next color to tack it down, finger press it open, and once again stitch out the next color to create a placement line for the next fabric, as you can see in the fourth picture there. Place fabric A3 right side down, stitch out the next color to tack it down and finger press it open, and then place fabric B3 right side down, stitch out the next color to tack it down, finger press it open, and then we're going to stitch out the placement lines for the border fabric, which is going to do two things. It's going to show us where to place the border, and it's going to hold all the inner pieces down real nice. So then we're going to put both fabric C2 short strips right side down at a time, stitch out the next two colors, and finger press both of those open. Then you're going to place both fabric C3 strips along the long sides, right side down, stitch out the next two colors to tack those pieces down, finger press them open, and that completes all the fabric placement. What you're going to do now is reposition the tape that was holding down the batting so that it just holds down the border pieces. And you want to, again, make sure that you're right on the edge of the fabric so that you don't stitch over the tape. And then you're going to remove the hoop from the machine, flip the hoop upside down, and secure your backing fabric right side up to the underside using the embroidery perfection tape. And obviously you want to use some new pieces. So you're going to put that on the bottom and then reattach the hoop to the machine. You want to make sure to get that backing fabric nice and tight and get the tape down so it doesn't catch on your bobbin. And I should say your needle case, and then put the hoop back in the machine. Now it's important to change the top and bottom thread to a color that goes with your fabric. You could have done that at the beginning, it wouldn't matter. And then you want to stitch out the crazy stitches, and you want to stitch out the basting stitch. And you can see we've changed the thread color for the basting stitch, but you really don't have to because you're going to pull it out anyway. And that completes the stitching of the design. The last thing you need to do is remove the hoop from the machine and unhoop the block. Trim the block 1/4 inch away from all the basting stitch on all four sides. And if you use a transparent quilting ruler and a rotary cutter, it'll make that job a lot easier. And when you're done, each block will be slightly less than 6.5 inches. That's the same as all the other blocks we've done. And you want to repeat that 3 more times to make a total of 4 blocks. And we want to thank everybody for attending. We really, for this particular one, hope you'll use the video along with the printed PDF instructions to recreate this project at home. We hope that you'll come back next month for the final installment, where we're going to show you a technique for putting all the blocks together. And don't forget to post your blocks on the Floriani Embroidery Facebook page, because we're doing a contest. You have to put all your blocks out there to show us your progress along the way, and then post your final quilt when it's done. We're going to be giving out some prizes for the best looking blocks and the best looking final quilt. So DJ, I'm going to throw it back to you. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I do actually. I want to probably show my screen. I want to show some of the latest entries that we've had on the Facebook page. So
okay,
go ahead and take over. And which screen are you seeing here?
I'm seeing the one that says MDQ. Oh, there we go.
Is it kind of blank right now?
Kind of blank, yes.
Okay, good. All right, let me get my files open here. First, I'll show you block 5 entries. This was last month, and we had some pretty neat ones come through. This was the shadow work project, and you can see, like, I don't know how well you can see, but you'll notice that this is a striped fabric underneath this white fabric, which was kind of a really neat look. Here's another entry. Just want to show a few of these just to show how some of them came out. You see this one with the polka dots and stuff in it. Here's another one. So you can see there's a lot of them. They look much different from each other, which is great. That's how we want it. It looks like somebody used a little bit of variegated thread, and I really like how this variegated thread came out on this block sample as well. So this was just some of the blocks that came in. We haven't seen any for block 6 yet on the Facebook page. Hopefully they'll be coming soon. We did get a few more entries as well for the first blocks. Let's see here, that I don't think I've shown before, like this one right here. So we've been getting a lot come through, and we're excited for next month's project, where we will learn how to put all of these together finally. And I know I've seen kind of where we're going with it next month, and saw one of the quilts finalized, and it was absolutely gorgeous. I was very surprised how everything came together, all the different blocks, and made a really beautiful quilt. So I'm pretty excited.
And I should just mention that it's not too late. Just because you haven't put your entries in every month, it's not too late to get in the contest. You know, you can put them in at the end. We aren't going to judge them all till the very end anyway, so you've still got at least a month and a half to get all your quilt blocks done and your final quilt done and get it in. And we may give you a little more time to get the final one done. We'll just have to play that one by ear. But you can see, as DJ is going through, all the variations that have come in, and it's just amazing because the basic design is identical. What's changed is just the fabric and thread choices, and it's just amazing the amount of beautiful variations that you quilters have done with these simple designs.
Yeah, I love it. I love the fact that everyone is using the same design but picking their own fabrics, because a lot of times you see a lot of the same quilts being done where they're buying the exact same fabrics and using the same designs, and it's just amazing to see how much variation comes into play when you just switch the fabrics and the colors of threads, where the same design looks totally different when using other fabrics and other colors. So it's been really fun to kind of see it all, and we definitely thank you all for attending and participating and sharing some of your blocks on Facebook, and we can't wait to see the quilts you guys put together for it. So we will, I guess, close down for today, and we look forward to seeing you all next time, and keep the projects coming and keep posting on the Facebook page. We do appreciate it. Hope everyone enjoyed it, and thank you, Mark, for doing a wonderful job on the presentation. And
DJ, should we give them an idea what's coming after this project series is done? Or should
I think we'll share that next time.
Okay, we'll wait next time. But we have something exciting for you to follow up this series with another, and we're not going to tell you what it is, but I think you'll be excited about it.
Yeah. And so thank you guys again. Thank you, Mark, and we will see you all next time.
Okay, bye-bye.